Good morning. So this is a player reflection of Symbaroum session 3. This one run by Dell here at Roleplay Cafe, with David and I as the warrior characters. Fantastic. I'm tired. Got up early. That was a long session. We went not almost 4 hours. Very good. So Dell set us up interlude. He basically gave my character a chance to address Rigel from David's session. And of course, that's kind of difficult to do, as we didn't know David's. I don't know, maybe Dell did know David's motivation for Rigel, right? I mean, Rigel is our sponsor. So I introduced Rigel as the guy who sponsors us, gives us our explorer's license, and funds our expeditions into the Davakar and gives us gigs, gives us jobs. So in a way, he's our boss. So Taro wasn't certain, right? Character-wise, Taro in the last session thought maybe Rigel sold them out to be victims of a sacrifice. But of course, I would have been shocked if David had, made that decision that Rigel. Yeah, but Taro doesn't know that. And so Dell gave us an opportunity to role play right out of the gate and address Rigel, which was awesome because David and I's characters hadn't met really yet. So we had an opportunity to kind of meet and greet outside the tent. And then in the tent, we were able to have that exchange. Rigel was able to say, basically express how disgusted he was that we failed miserably in the last adventure. So that actually worked brilliantly. And then David was able to step in as Malleus and basically vouch for me and say, listen, I'll pay what he cost you in that failed expedition, which was amazing. So David's Malleus instantly basically says, hey, this guy's legit. Here's my thalers to prove it. I'll put my money where my mouth is. And then Rigel made us another offer. David made a personal obligation with Rigel. Also, and then of course my character would get paid for the deal, and then he set us out on a very bottom line, basically a scenario in which the odds that we were going to succeed pretty low, but they made that personal obligation that David demanded much more real practical, in that this is a tough mission, so why not give me a personal obligation, Rigel, which was cool. And then, of course, guaranteed that I would get paid something if we succeeded. So my character is basically a ranger / warrior. David's is similar. He's more of a warrior, ex-soldier, actually, from the Queen's Army. My character, having come up from the mountains, the Titan Mountains, as a ranger / mountaineer, turned treasure hunter to make his repute, right? To make his way in the world, and to be. He wants to be immortalized. He wants his song to be. He wants his legend to be immortalized in song and poetry, so to speak. But he's got a long way to go to earn that kind of reputation. But either way, we accept the gig. And then Dell narrates interludes. These are basically, so the first was a scene with Rigel. Second was an interlude, as Dell described our travels with a pack of pilgrims going to the Karavasti, which is the city stronghold of the barbarians, which is in the Bright Dakavar northwest, quite a distance. Again, about 5 days travel, 7 days travel, and we were charged with taking the archpriest custody and bringing him back to Rigel alive. Not easy, because the archpriest is the leader of this temple, Sun Temple, around the Karavasti mesa. So the Karavasti city of the barbarians is on a mesa that kind of overlooks the Davakar. So interlude, he just describes how we travel and we get to we work our way up onto the mesa. The barbarians, of course, have a camp for pilgrims, and they drive us to that direction. And then David and I, again, we are not rogues, so to speak. So we have our work cut out for us. How are we going to do this? Because My character immediately thinking we can't fight our way in and take him alive and then fight our way out. So I'm really Taro's really scratching his head. How are we going to get this guy? David, before we left, said that he wants to work the pilgrims and find a contact or merchant among the pilgrims on the journey to secure a draught that would allow us to knock unconscious the archpriest. So that was simple enough, and we were able to do that. And again, that's just part of the interlude as we travel. It's assumed that David would be mingling with merchants, etc., to kind of acquire this draught that he could use to knock unconscious the archpriest. And so that was very cool. We get there and we begin our investigations. We first go up and we see the temple. We stand with all the other pilgrims as the main archpriest comes out and gives an hour-long sermon about the cultivation of nature and taking back nature from the Davokar, rescuing the nature from the overgrowing Davokar forest, so to speak. And we're able to assess that there are other lower level priests that wear masks, and then he introduces these Templars that are giants that are also wearing masks, but they're big, well armed Templars that travel through the camp and around the. So we thought, okay, we've got priests, but there would be opportunity for disguise. The Templars are too big, and they look incredibly dangerous. We have seen the archpriest in his garb now. Of course, we don't know what he looks like outside that. And they have the sermon. He goes back in, and so we've been able to assess that initial. So we did a little investigation. We go back down to the camp where we've been at times looking for a way that we can get him out, like a wagon. So we've been kind of eyeballing wagons and trying to figure out how we're going to get a wagon and get out of there. Once we secure his body, so to speak, once we capture him. And Dell describes how there's a lot of trade. So most of these pilgrims not only come for the solstice, and by the way, we have to actually capture this archpriest before the solstice. So we're on a timetable here. We traveled 5 days. We have 7 days before the solstice. We have basically the next 24 hours to capture this guy before they have the solstice rituals, I suppose, is what I'm imagining. I don't know exactly, but we have to get him before solstice. Anyway, so we're back down in the pilgrim camp. He describes to us as the pilgrims aren't only here for this. They use it as an excuse to bring merchandise to trade with the barbarians. So lots of wagons loaded with merchandise, and the pilgrims load up. They go over to Karavasti and they trade. Then they'll come back and reload wagons, go back. So the barbarians aren't coming down to the refugee pilgrim camp to do this. The pilgrims are having to go up to Karavasti with their wagons and do this. So the camp is full at times and less full at times, etc. That's the gist of what I was getting. Anyway, we're able to investigate a little bit. We run into a blind man, we talk to a merchant, and we find out that the merchant has deliveries to the East Gate in the morning, and he has agreed to allow us to deliver those goods if we will get what the church owes him in fees for giving them supplies without being paid. So we have a way in at 7 a.m. the next morning. David and I continue through the camp, investigating, talking to people. We run into a blind man. David, again, with what money he has, I have zero money. I thought at some point I'll have to sell a weapon maybe, and I'd have some stuff. So I figured I have goods with merchants around. I could sell something if I needed to. But David has enough coin that he's bought us some meat pies, and we find out from that guy, that his wife is not helping him. That leads us to a blind man, in which David drops some coins in his cup, and the blind man tells us that they're supposed that Sun Temple is sitting on a fortune that's buried in the bowels, and that Madame Olivia, who is the administrator for the Sun Temple, she would know how to get us in. So then we know this. So then we decide to set up, eat our pies, wait around the camp and he does tell us that she comes down to do her rounds in the pilgrim camp. So we wait for her, and we intercept her. And she's surrounded by children. So I entertain the kids with juggling rocks and whatever. I'm assuming acting like a fool to keep the kids entertained, while David then can talk to her, and he's able to show in a way our warrant without actually letting her read what it really is, right? He's pretending in a way that our explorer's license is a warrant to talk to to get into the temple and to talk to someone in higher up. And she agrees to meet us in about an hour, and she will assure that we'll get in to talk to one of the priests. So fortunately, we come up to the gate on the east side. The two guards know we're coming. They let us in, and a Father Arnett or Arno or something, anyway, meets us, and he's a short, kind of sweaty, red-faced, nervous person, and we sit with him in private. And David kind of shows him the scroll, mentions the scroll. I'm able to then say to him, are you, if you are an ambitious person, there's two ways this can go for you. One, if you're ambitious and you help us remove the archpriest, you're going to be able to move your way up here at the Sun Temple. But if you're not, it's wise for you to help us remove this guy because he's wanted. And you don't want that to come back on you in this Sun Temple. So he agrees that he would have robes and masks and things for us to disguise ourselves, and rope and a hook to climb into the window of the high priest's bedchamber at midnight. So we decide to get out of there. We don't want to hang around the temple and be dealing with the Templars or the guards. And so we go back down to the camp, and we wait for a while and prepare. And on our way up, a mist rolls in on us about midnight. We're stopped by a Templar who ultimately is about to assault us, as he doesn't buy my excuse for why we're out at a midnight stroll around the camp. And a horde of locusts with this fog, this like red fog, and under a blood moon come rolling in, and these locusts take out this Templar, giant Templar, and we run like heck for the Sun Temple. We cross the bridge up to the Sun Temple, into the gates. We help the guards bar the gates, and the Father comes out, brings us in, and he gives us our garbs, and we disguise ourselves. David swings the hook up, climbs into the bedchamber. I follow him up. We find that he is behind we're on a terrace, like a patio, in a tower overlooking the temple and the mesa and the Davakar, and it's all blood red from this blood moon. So everything looks red and rust colored as it reflects this blood moon. And of course, the locusts have kind of blown through, headed where they were headed. Anyway, we find that there's a stained glass doors, unfortunately locked. And we can see, though, through the stained glass that someone lay in the bedchamber, tossing and turning, having fevered nightmares. David, I decide to stand up and make like I'm try to get his attention through, standing up on the edge of the terrace, waving my arms, trying to make get attention, while David knocks and whispers to him to get him to wake up and see this thing. And we want him to come out on the terrace. We don't want to break through these glass doors, wake everybody up. So we're trying to get him to actually come out. And we succeed at that as David from behind discreetly uses this potion of the blackberry thorn, whatever, to put him asleep. And then we are able to lower him down on the rope, get out of there, and head back. Well, as we come back down across the bridge, we see that these, what are called wrath guards, have waylaid the pilgrim camp, and everything is on fire, and people are screaming. They're being cut down. It's utter chaos, and we realize now that the barbarian wolf, these barbarian wrath guards have wiped out the pilgrim merchant camp that we were with. And so we fight our way through this camp. We come into we are cut off by a wolf guard as we're trying to fight our way through this. David's character Malleus is carrying the priest on his shoulder, while I have my pike, and I'm defending and fighting through these guys. And we run into a wolf guard. I keep saying wolf guard. A wrath guard which is basically, I believe, now I haven't studied the monsters in the book, but I think the Wrathguard is a barbarian, uh, basically a barbarian zealot warrior. Anyway, they are tough. We end up in a battle with this Wrathguard. At the same time, a rage troll, is wading through everybody. And we decide, well, we're not going to be able to beat this guy down, so why don't we run and try to get them to cross paths? So as we fighting retreat, basically taking our chances as we're retreating but fighting this guard, we want to cross paths with the troll and hope that the troll and him end up in a battle. And it happens, but not before David is smacked by the troll off his feet, and he's getting up. And of course, the priest gets wounded with this assault by the troll. I take a vicious axe blow by the Wrath Guard, which renders me to 3 toughness points. And 0, I would be unconscious and dying, and I'd have to make what are called death rolls. So we're hurting, right? But meanwhile, it works. The troll and the guard end up in a fight for about 3 rounds, and that buys us 3 rounds to get further and further away from these pursuing guard and the troll. And so ultimately, though, he brings down the troll, and there's one more turn where he attempts to pursue us, and we ultimately get away and off into the Davakar, down into the under the canopy of the trees, the Davakar, off the mesa, and we camp. And Dell describes again in an interlude how it takes us about 5 days, constant rain, to travel back to Blackmoor. Thistle Scold is the name of the tent city, to Blackmoor and to Rigel. And we deliver our captive successfully. I am badly wounded. David is wounded, and I get paid thalers. Again, I don't know exactly how much Dell had not processed what, and he gets an IOU, a personal IOU from Rigel, a favor IOU from Rigel for succeeding. So it was fantastic. And it took us about 3 hours and 45 minutes, I would say, of the actual game time. We talked for another 15 minutes, 5 minutes before and 10 or 15 minutes after. So about 4 hours or so. Fantastic. You can see the live stream on the channel. I did record. I always record a backup, but I don't always put it up unless there's some reason, that something I would have captured on screen. So Dell did a great job. Dell took a pre-written module, which is pretty cool, and he just transported the whole concept into the Symbaroum lore and universe, and it worked brilliantly. It's fantastic. He did some hand-drawn stuff of the temple and of the temple fortress. It was fantastic. And we just played, I used dice, David used his dice. The GM doesn't have to roll dice, so he just trusted our dice rolls. And we didn't need Roll20. We didn't need any, any other things. And then in Discord, he would share the photograph, the hand-drawn sketches that he did. So it was great. And we had a great time. And David and I, of course, first time we've had a chance to play together in something other than I think we did Delta Green, Justin Rennis and Delta Green. David and I, of course, have been together in OSC Joff. That is the Old School Essentials OSR D20 old school game. I don't know if we've had a lot of opportunities to sit together at a table as players in other game systems. So this has been great fun. And I got to tell you, so far, rotating was great. I did the Icebreaker. David has done session 2, which was brilliant. Got Taro and Shid going. And then now we've got Dell. And so we had a chance for Taro and Malleus to meet. We worked great together. I described my character as 5'8", 165 pounds, laconic, doesn't talk a lot, expects his action to speak for himself. And I thought it worked great. My persuasion is a 5. So again, I'm not trying to intimidate or persuade. However, it comes up, because somebody will speak. And when there's a challenge on the table, that persuasion, that's a tough deal. So we worked great together in that, I tried to defer to let Malleus do most of the talking and kind of lead the way. And then we had we worked great together as I defended and fought while he carried the body. He was able to acquire the potion to help knock this guy unconscious. It was a great session. And David and I, our 2 characters, realizing that we are warriors first and rogue thief, second. We had to really use our smarts to avoid fighting our way in and maybe killing this guy, trying to get him out, and then fighting our way out. It would have been disaster, and it was great. It was fantastic. So Dell really challenged us. I mean, it took us. I mean, we had to work. We had to work our way through the camp. We had to talk to multiple NPCs to get information and to kind of come up with a plan. So he did a great job. I'm sorry, this is out of focus, I think. He did a great job of making us work to get information and making us work to come up with allies and opportunities in which we could infiltrate this fortress. And that's key. It was a slow burn, and I love that. I mean, I prefer games that do require we work a little bit, and I don't mean just in combat, right? So it was outstanding. So again, that's 3 down. It'd be great now if we could get Justin back to the table, get Vikamer involved with some of these characters, and it would be great at some point if we can get a time that works for Justin to GM us, right? And so it'd be cool to see Vikamer back at the table as a player, Justin, and then it'd be cool to see Justin GM us at some point in our round robin. It'd be great. So again, I don't know what our experience is. I did spend my 10 experience that David had given me to upgrade my cunning. Again, narratively in my character sheet, I make sense of why my cunning improved, because my first adventure, I learned a lot, right? My character went into the Davakar. My character dealt with cultist witches, and we survived. And my character learned some lessons, valuable lessons about, Rigel and about accepting these gigs. So I thought all that makes sense for my character's cunning, which is mine, to improve by 1 point. So my cunning went up from a 9 to a 10. So I spent my 10 XP to improve my cunning with what is called an exceptional attribute. So instead of adding a skill or a talent, I just had my attribute cunning go up a notch. And I thought narratively, for a young man who's he had his first gig that was a miserable failure, and we got away, and I experienced quite a bit in that sense. It just makes sense that my character would have reflected, my character on his way back to Rigel would have reflected on what happened and how do I avoid that in the future, et cetera, et cetera. So narratively, I can understand how my attribute of cunning would go up a point. So my character technically, I don't know if David spent his, David should have 10 XP from my session. I don't know if he spent it. I don't think he did. So my character technically is up. They don't have levels in Symbaroum. You just take your XP when you have enough, and you can buy pieces, or you can buy another thing, or you can upgrade a thing. And of course, you need 20 XP to upgrade a thing. I don't have any things to upgrade, but for 10, I could go up. A different attribute could go up, or not different. I could upgrade any attribute as long as I don't go over 15. Anyway, so I upgraded my cunning. It was great, and Dale, for the most part, did his homework on the lore, and knew a little bit about the rules. He does have the PDFs, but the reality is, he didn't need a whole lot of. Again, it's one of those games where the core is pick an attribute for a challenge, and the players have to roll under their attribute, modified by a difficulty, and the difficulty is going to be from -5 to +5. That's all a GM needs to know, right? So now that can be modified by an actual enemy's modifier, or it can be modified by what the GM perceives as a difficulty. Gentlemen, there's a lot of merchants around here. You want to buy some beef pies? You can do that. Oh, gentlemen, you're looking for a contact. Well, let's go ahead and check your vigilance to see if you spot someone who might talk to you. We're going to do that at -2 because you're new to the area, right? So you just you just give us a -2 modifier, and we roll the dice. So it's really, again, Dell's experience, so it would have been no problem. The only time the rules become an issue is when we're actually dealing with a well-defined rule, a rule that says it has to be this and this, which is, again, not a problem. Same with combat. The hardest part about combat is just looking at what the monsters can do, what their attribute effects are upon us, what their damage effect on us is, and what their defense effect is on us. And that's, once you've got that, pretty easy. So again, I never felt there was any moment in the game where where we were scratching our heads for rules, or that we were at a loss for how we should check this thing or whether we should check this thing. It was great. So it went great. And he actually was using a system agnostic campaign book or module, and then he just applied it to Symbaroum, and it worked beautifully. So he had to deal with, versus writing his own, or like our game, Dark Age of Man, where you're naive and you know the setup, but you just roll to see what might crop up in front of the players. So it's a whole different animal, which just means more book looking for him and more rolling dice and reading a thing for him. So similar to, like mine I wrote, so I pretty much knew what was going to happen. So it was kind of like preparing something. If you've prepared it, then you only have to remind yourself of key things. So it's great. I really enjoy this. I could continue to do this with these gentlemen on and off as long as we want to. Swapping GM roles, etc. I really thought there for a second there was no way Tara was going to survive. And David was on the run with the body, so I thought he could probably get away. I would have to fight to protect him, and that's fine. I mean, I want a game to feel dangerous and gritty, and so we in one shot my character was down. One more shot like that, my character would have been reduced to 0 and rolling what's called death saves, basically. And I thought for sure Tara was not going to survive this session, and I like that. I want the game for it to be dark and gritty. There has to be a lethality to it. There has to be a fear that you could get in over your head, or you could come into something that your character is not really likely to survive, or at least we could flee, maybe fail. Well, even if we don't die, we could fail, right? I thought for sure we would probably. I thought for sure we would probably fail to capture the priest successfully, and getting him out of there successfully. I thought we might ultimately at some point have to again abandon. And there's again, I think this is part of the thing about lethal games, even OSR. The complaint how easy it is to die in OSR. Well, flees should always be an option, and if the players successfully flee, they should be out of danger, and that's part of the OSR, old school D&D kind of understanding of flee. That's always an option players have. Now they have to have an ability. If they're trapped in a dungeon room, where are you going to flee to, right? And there's rules generally for pursuit if you flee. But that's one of the ways players still fail, but they don't have to die, right, to fail. They could fail the mission. They could have to leave the dungeon. They could have to run away into the woods. And they fail miserably at achieving something but at least they're not always, it's not succeed or die, right? It could be succeed or fail by fleeing or die, right? And so it's paramount that we have that feeling of that. The only thing I would have suggested to Dell as our GM is he described this midnight hour thing, right? These giant stinging locusts, this blood red mist. At one point, my character failed a cunning check and was under a delusion. They thought he was fighting this boar, this tusk boar. I was desperately trying to fight off as I thought it was real, while David was trying to get us out of there. All that was amazing. The one thing I probably would have done, I would have said to Dell, because of the effect those things had on us, we should have made corruption check, right? We should have suffered corruption. So Dell's put us in a situation in the Davokar with this particular effect that was definitely corruption. He defined it as corruption. This is corrupt. This is pretty serious stuff. I mean, you got a plague of locusts. You got this mist. You're suffering delusions and living nightmares. All of that was perfect. The one piece mechanically he forgot was to make us make temporary corruption, right? So when I felt that role, I would have dealt with that, but then there should have been another negative effect on me, a 1-die-4 temporary corruption. So when I failed that check, there should have been an actual effect on me until that scene was over, which would have been corruption, temporary corruption, which could have turned into permanent corruption, right, by the end of that scene, which would have been sweet. My character could have come out of that really affected by that. having nightmares for the remainder of his life or whatever. And then we could justify that by having an actual permanent corruption score of 1. So the only thing I think Dell missed a chance on was introducing corruption. So my session, they were in the Bright Davacar. They only had one chance to have some temporary corruption when they first entered the Davacar, but there was nothing else to cause corruption in their adventure. David took us deeper into the Davacar, and we faced a greater danger, but again, not any serious. I think we had one roll there where we both had temporary corruption. And Dell took us, I thought, to a deeper level with this kind of midnight ritual, some kind of effect. And Dell described to us, again, Tarot's kind of ignorant of what's going on. To him, it's all supernatural. But that would have been a great place for Dell to hit us with a 1-4 of temporary corruption. All right, you guys roll 1-4, you've suffered some corruption. It's certainly me, when I failed that check, my character should definitely have suffered some temporary corruption and maybe had a lingering permanent corruption after, because I never did succeed. I think I made a second check at the bridge and still did not succeed in shaking off the delusion of the giant boar. That should have been when he described how it fades, but in the periphery of my mind, and I'll suffer a permanent corruption of 1 for that. That would have been so cool, and it would have mechanically reflected how I was feeling as Tarot, right? So Tarot's having this living nightmare fighting this boar while David's screaming, "Dude, you're dreaming it. Let's get out of here." Temporary corruption would have made sense during that, and then if that second failure, it should have become at the end of scene, no more boar, keep moving, in scene. But Jason, you have a permanent corruption. Tarot now has 1 permanent corruption. Would have been perfect. So that's just one of those things. We haven't played it enough, and we haven't thought much about it. But part of the Davacar and part of these experiences is temporary corruption / permanent corruption. So that would have been, for me, that effect was corruption. I think Dell even described it as such. That would be the only thing I would have suggested to Dell. Hit us with some temporary corruption with that kind of force, right? The locusts, the mist, the delusional waking nightmare. We'd witnessed 2 people having nightmares, screaming nightmares, one in a tent in the village. And then, of course, the actual priest we were trying to capture was having fitful nightmares. So there was an effect. There was a corruption effect happening on the village, on everybody. So that would have been a great time for us to make resolution checks against corruption. If we failed, we suffered temporary. And he did, in a way, make me make a cunning check, which would have been a temporary corruption, would have been in a way a corruption check failure. But he just wasn't as familiar with the rules. And I wasn't going to backseat GM and say, "Dude, is this corruption?" But that would have been the only thing. It would have probably made the session perfect, right? Beside that, it was perfect anyway. But it would have been great to see corruption affect us that way. Okay, outside of that, fantastic. I can't get enough of it. I think this is a fantastic book, fantastic setting, fantastic game engine. The characters are very cool. The abilities are very cool. And the options for us to explore corruption, the Bright Davacar, the Dark Davacar, and all the surrounding areas that are free for even. So, my next one might take us away from the Davacar and over the mountains or into the mountains. Therefore, it's free for me to create a culture there that is unrelated necessarily to this. So what's cool is we go outside the Davacar in that region, we can create lore that is not tied to this core book, which is fun, right? So again, we got a lot of options with Symbaroum as a dark, gritty fantasy setting. All right. What else? That's it. So then all we need now is what experience we've earned from this. Adele will have to hit us up with experience. And then, of course, how many thalers my character was paid for the job well done. And that's really it. And then, of course, I would love to see Justin play or GM us if we can find a time that works for him, like a Friday night or something. Heck, maybe even one of these Tuesday nights. And one of these Tuesday nights that Todd is not able to GM us, maybe Todd could make a character and Justin could run us on a Tuesday night. It would be cool to see Todd, because Todd wants to play, but we just, Saturdays are hard for these guys. So we could get, if one of these Tuesday nights that Todd doesn't run Joff, we could get Todd playing and Justin running us all in a Symbaroum Tuesday night would be very cool. So don't look for me to mention it, gentlemen, in the Discord, that when we don't do Joth on a Tuesday night, that would be a perfect time for Justin and Todd to play Symbaroum, or Justin to run our Symbaroum on a Tuesday night. Would be so fun. Anyway, thank you for watching. Everybody out there, have a fantastic remainder of your weekend and the week. I won't probably make another video this week. Next week, Saturday, I'm running session 2 of our Dark Age of Man Chronicles, featuring Brian, Sam, and Dell. This is going to be remarkable. Our goal is 1 session a month. We're going to do 4 sessions, so we should be wrapping up. So we've had our August. We're doing September this weekend. Then we'll have an October and maybe a late October or early November, and that will wrap up these Dark Age of Man Chronicles with those guys. And I love it. I'm so looking forward to it. So that's a biggie. And the great thing is I don't have to prepare anything. All I have to do is I'm gonna have to check my notes and remind myself what went down, where they're currently at, and refresh myself. The actual session I did the day after the last session, so I already did the inciting incident. I've got that stuff done, and then I did my RSC. All that was done day after the last session. My prep was done in 10-12 minutes. Now all I need to do is get my head around the fact, where is Sam in the world? What's really, what could be affecting Sam right now? Where is Brian and what's affecting Brian right now? Where's Dell? What's affecting Dell right now? And then we go. And then, of course, we set them in space. Being session 2, I'll probably set them in space. It'll depend on the nature. Like Sam's character, I've got to set him in space because Sam committed a miracle, and there's going to be a lot of fallout around that miracle that would affect Sam. So I'll probably put Sam into space Saturday. Dell is pretty much a free agent. He was kind of a free agent during the session. I think Dell will probably put himself into space. And then Brian, I'll let him put himself into space because Brian is introducing an NPC to Sam. So I'll probably start the session putting Sam into position, and then Brian can kind of fold into that situation. And then Dell, who knows where Dell's at, what Dell's doing, right? So that's the beautiful thing about Dark Age of Man, is they have some impact on where they're at right now, what's happened. They start off, right? They have some agency over where Brian envisions his character is today, day after, right? The day after the thing, right? Okay, or week, whatever, how many days. We're going to start it off pretty much the next day. And then I was going to do a in media res start, but I don't think we need to. The game is alive, and there's so many things that are happening instantly even with the RSC chart, that in a way our game is always in media res, if that makes sense. So I probably won't force an in media res because it would feel forced and it might feel contrived based on what we're doing with this Dark Age of Man Chronicles. And these players are so experienced and so good that I don't really need to do in media res play, because they're going to take responsibility for their character in this world. We all agree on how it's functioning right now. So I think it's going to be fantastic. So be aware, next Saturday we'll be going live with the second Chronicles of Dark Age of Man. And I cannot wait. Thank you, Dell. Thank you, David, for another brilliant session last night. And for those of you out there tuning in, I cannot recommend this enough. If you are into tabletop role-playing, fantasy, dark, gritty fantasy games, this is a win-win. Thank you. Good day.